Star Wars 7 by 7 episode 2498. All right, let's talk about the appearance of a certain Padawan within the Bad Batch, what it says about what's possible for the Bad Batch going forward as a TV series, and also that whole little continuity thing that's cropped up as a result. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7 by 7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So we are going into spoiler territory on the Bad Batch premiere, so if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want it spoiled for you, then by all means save this episode for a later date. But if you are okay with me digging into it, then stick with me because here we go. Here is, first off, the spoiler comparatively, if you haven't seen the episode, is the fact that a certain Padawan appears in the grand cinematic opening. It is none other than Caleb Doom, and you might know him better as Kanan Jarrus from Star Wars Rebels. Yes, we get to see the Padawan in action, but here's the thing. This is not actually the first time we've seen that Padawan in action, nor is it the first time that this particular story has been told, and this is where we get into the continuity situation. Here's the deal with that. A whopping 6 years ago, so this is back in 2015, there was a 12-issue limited series comic that was put out called Kanan, the Last Padawan, and it basically talked about a mission that the Ghost Crew went on to this planet called Collar. Yes, that one from the show, but it brought to mind an experience that young Kanan had when he was a Padawan to Depa Billaba, and this comic told the story of how Kanan Doom, wow, I'm going to mix up all the names this time. How Caleb Doom, aka Kanan Jarrus, experienced Order 66. And the way it's told in the comics is different from what we see in the Bad Batch premiere. And if you haven't happened to read that comic, I'll just give you a couple of highlights. The story was originally that the battle they were fighting on Collar was over, and the clones and Depa Billaba and Caleb Doom were billeting out in the middle of the forest, like they were basically under the stars, right? And it was nighttime, and they were around a campfire and talking, and there was a Commander Gray and a Captain Styles, I believe it was, and at night around the campfire is when they got the Order 66 command from Palpatine, and everything went crazy from there. But in the TV series, not like that. During the day, and the battle was essentially still raging for all intents and purposes, and the Bad Batch is there. The Bad Batch was not depicted in the comics, so that's also a new element to things. And at this point, those are all the differences that are worth telling, all right? So, the fact that it was snowy where Kanan escaped in the Bad Batch premiere versus it not being snowy in the comics, like that stuff doesn't really matter, essentially. I mean, it's, yeah, you could really get nitpicky about that stuff, but yeah, we don't have to do that because there's quite enough on the continuity side of things that's just like kind of surprising, and it is not the first time that's happened, and not the first time that's happened with animation. The ending of Season 7 of the Clone Wars and the fate of Ahsoka and Rex at the end of that is different from the way it's depicted in E.K. Johnston Ahsoka novel as well. So, not the first time it's happened, and it probably won't be the last at this point. So it's kind of fascinating to see how this is happening. And this is not a case of me saying, ooh, I caught them or something like that. That's not how I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it in terms of the fact that one of the things that was achieved by rebooting the canon in 2014 was getting rid of a lot of continuity issues that existed in the previous expanded universe, now Legends, right? I know that wasn't the only motivation, but certainly it was one that was even cited by Pablo Hidalgo in some cases. And I suppose, if this was going to go on for any length of time, it was bound to happen again. I'm so curious to know, because I imagine at this point it is a very conscious decision to do this sort of thing. And so, that's the sort of thing that I would love to have that kind of conversation with, someone within Story Group, for example, and say, why are you guys deciding to do this? I would just love to know about it because I know there must be a rationale for it. Leaving that aside, though, let's talk about what else the Caleb Doom appearance in this episode tells us about the Bad Batch going forward. There's a lot of Star Wars characters out there who could appear in the Bad Batch, and this could become sort of an old home day for Star Wars in terms of the characters who appear. We've already had Saw Gerrera. We know that there was a blink and you'll miss it moment for Captain Rex showing up in one of the trailers, and of course Governor Tarkin has shown up in here too. So who else is out there who could possibly show up in this series? And considering that we're talking about the clones and the Bad Batch, and that sort of leans into a certain grouping of folks, you could imagine a possibility of Maul showing up. You could imagine the Mandalorians showing up at some point. You could imagine Baby Grogu somehow appearing in this whole thing. You could have Cham Syndulla showing up. That would be Hera Syndulla's dad. And, you know, he was already in the Clone Wars series, so every reason for him to appear in this one as well. You could also consider the possibility of Ahsoka Tano. Did I say Ahsoka already? Ahsoka Tano could be a part of this too. Yes, you know, we're spitballing names here. It could be any number of characters who might end up showing up in the Bad Batch series, but the point that I'm trying to make is that the fact that with their premiere, which, you know, there was enough anticipation and excitement about it already, so they didn't have to bring Caleb Doom into this, but they made a point of doing that. So it just goes to show that based on what we know so far with Caleb Doom and Saw Gerrera and Captain Rex, that we are bound to see more legacy Star Wars characters, if you will, appearing in this series. And that's what I'd love to hear about from you, actually, is who you think is most likely to show up, a pre-existing character who would be most likely to show up in the Bad Batch series that we don't already know about yet. So drop me a line and start a conversation wherever you like to interact with the podcast, whether it's on Facebook, it's on Twitter, on YouTube, or at home base for the show at sw7x7.com. And that right there is where we're going to leave it for today. That will do it for today's show. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.